amazing because today we're going to unpack and address diet fatigue. And now, a lot of people don't know what that word is, but a lot of people, I would say almost every single one of us, has experienced that at some time. So, what do I mean by diet fatigue? For me, diet fatigue is being caught in the process and feeling like you're stuck and being so frustrated in that process. And for me, the way I quantify process is that could literally mean you've been doing this for 3 months, you've been doing this for 3 years, you've been doing this for 30 years. But the whole point for me of diet fatigue is we've reached a point, almost like a mental plateau. And we're like, what do we do? Because we're stuck. We're so frustrated because we feel like we've been trying. We're not seeing the progress that we wish we could see, but we know that we can't turn back. And I often liken this analogy to swimming in the ocean, whereas we've gotten far enough from the shore that we came, but we can't see it behind us. But we also aren't close enough to our goal or our destination that we can't see the sand in front of us. So we just look around and all we see is oceans, not the trendy worship song, but like actual water. And we get frustrated. We're like, what do we do? And so if you've ever been stuck or lost or frustrated, my goal today is to break that cycle. Before I do, I know y'all on mute, but if you want to raise your hand, have you ever felt like you've had diet fatigue? Like you've just hit this point where you're like mentally over it? Literally just about everyone. All right, this is, if this were an altar call, this would be amazing. It's not an altar call, but I love all the participation. So thank you. That's maybe that's what we should do. We should stealth altar calls into like, have you ever been frustrated with weight loss? Y'all just accepted Jesus. No, that wouldn't be right. That would not be right. But what is great though, is that we've all been there together. We've all hit this point at some shape, some way, shape, or form where like we're just over it. So now that we know what diet fatigue is, and now that we understand what it is, let's talk about how to actually break that and stop that. And so we're going to pull for Matthew 5:33 through 37. So Matthew 5:33 through 37. If you've got your scripture, feel free to read. Stephanie's amazing because she dropped the verse into the chat, so you can pull that if I was stuttering or speaking too fast because I get really excited sometimes, like I'm Mickey Mouse. Again, Matthew 5:33 through 37. I'm going to read, though, in case y'all don't have the word, because you don't have to. This is a Zoom call. So, again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but keep the oaths you have made to the Lord. But I tell you, do not swear at all, either by the heavens, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is God's footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black or gray for me. Simply let your yes be yes, and your no be no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. And what I really want to focus on is 37 for this. Let your yes be yes, and your no be no. We'll unpack the negative part of the anything beyond this comes from the evil one, but I really want to focus on the yes be yes, and your no be no, because I feel like this is where so many of us get frustrated and we get ourselves into the trouble of being fatigued by this whole process. Now, what do I mean by that? At its core, I'm glad y'all can't throw a shoe at me. At its core, weight loss is simple. It is literally a balance of energy. Expend more energy than you consume, and you will lose weight. However, what it takes to actually enact that is where all of the chaos comes in. Because quite often, what we do is we make this way frustratingly so harder than it needs to be. And so what we're going to do is we're going to break the cycle of that by simply asking 5 questions. There's only 5 questions you have to ask to break this. And it's even better. Like, it's not even multiple choice. Your answer is yes, or your answer is no. And unlike 8th grade math, y'all don't have to show the work. Like, just put the answer down. So it's even better. 1, do you love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, and your strength? Yes or no?
Yes.
Amen. So, assuming that you're here because of that, that then enacts the second question. Do you feel in some way, shape, or form that your weight or your body image is coming between you and the fullest life possible that God has called you to? Either by being so focused on what you look like that you're not going out and fulfilling the Great Commission, or that you're so wrapped up in the overweight struggle that you don't realize the beautiful creation you are, and everything in between. If you're here, then chances are you've struggled with weight. But you love God. And that tension is what calls us to some type of action. So I'm going to make the assumption that 1 and 2 are yeses, or else we wouldn't be here. And so it's 3 through 5 that really start to break this pattern. Because if you get 1 and 2 correct, then really that should steer a lot of your decision making. But just in case, because life is life, and if you're a parent, you've now become a part-time educator. So I won't assume number 3, but I will ask you, when it comes time to look at your life and your schedule, do you have the time? And when I say do you have the time, mind you, I'm not asking for you to go to the gym for 2 to 3 hours a day. What I'm asking you is, do you have 30 minutes to 60 minutes to be deliberate with your efforts? Yes or no? Good news is, if the answer is no, this just might not be the time. There's a season for everything. And if you literally have no time in your life, please dive into the grace. However, if you've worked with me in some way, shape, or form, and you're part of the Prodigal Wasteland program, quite often what we do is we talk about time management and how everyone has 24 hours in a day. And if you're sleeping for 8 and you're working for 8, you've got 8 hours flex. What are you doing in those 8 hours? And then it starts to become a question of priorities. It's very hard for me, if our yeses are yes and our nos are no, to hear I don't have the time and yet have someone have an active Netflix account. Because if you didn't have the time, you wouldn't have the time for Netflix, or my guilty pleasure, eBay, because who doesn't love discount shopping? But if you've got the time for these other things, then do you really not have the time for the 30 minutes, the 60 minutes, however? So when you start look at this, do you genuinely have the time? If you did a time audit, most people will say yes. So if you do genuinely have the time, then let your yes be yes and your no be no. Which then leads us to the 4th thing. Do you want the results that come from losing weight? Now, mind you, this isn't just like, hey girl, look how good I look. Like, that is way beyond the results of losing weight. It's the medicine that you might be off of when the weight comes off. It may be, whether it's blood pressure, diabetes. Do you want the benefits of that? Do you want the ability to walk into any store and not have to wonder, is it even going to fit? But rather, is my size on sale? Do you want the ability to not have to pay for 2 plane tickets, or to have a seatbelt extender when you go out to ride a ride at the amusement park? Or, very personal to me, do you want to be able to fit into a booth when you go into a restaurant? Do you want all the benefits that come from losing weight? Yes or no. And the fifth thing is this. If you've answered yes to 1, 2, 3, and 4, then are you genuinely willing to put the effort forth to make that happen?
Yes.
Amen. Because what ends up happening is, and this causes some of the frustration, we really say yes to number 4. We begrudgingly say yes to number 3. From a heart and a mindset, we pay yes to 1 and 2. Oh, when it gets to 5. This is where the crux of the diet fatigue starts to set in. And I never understood this until I looked at it through the lens of how my father used to talk to me when I was a child growing up about lying. So, as many of you know, I was a very overweight child. And I would do a lot of schemes to get food because my parents were always trying to get me to lose weight. And I didn't want to lose weight. I just wanted to eat. So there's a time where I stole baseball cards and sold them to make money to buy Little Debbie cakes. There was times where I would steal. God, we're getting real honest here. There are times where I would sign up for those like 10 CDs for a penny or a nickel. Thanks, Columbia House. And then I'd try to return them to the store for store credit because Columbia House actually had the SKUs. BMG had their own SKUs, right? That's how you know, y'all, this is real. What I'm saying is it got dark for a little bit. And what my father would always say is, oh, what wicked webs we weave when first we practice to deceive. Because if you've ever lied, okay, let's be honest here. We've all told fiblets. I don't know if we said lies. We've all told fiblets. But if you've ever told a fiblet, much like the rumor weed in VeggieTales, it starts to grow. And that first lie sets into place a second lie, which then sets into place a third lie. And all of a sudden, you don't know which lie is true or which one isn't because there's so many lies that have now begotten themselves. I'm not saying that we lie to ourselves, but what I am saying is when we start to try to justify the excuses we make, such as I don't have time, it's too expensive, I don't know what to do, I'm trying everything, you don't understand. I don't have to list these because you know them. But where it starts to get fatiguing is that you'll say, I don't have the time, and then you'll spend 4 hours watching Netflix. Or you'll say, I don't have the time, and you'll look back at your week and you'll go, where did it go? I got nothing done. Or you'll say, I don't have the money, and all of a sudden you're dropping $75 a week on fast food. And the lies that we tell ourselves to support the false belief is where it starts to get frustrating. And it's not just that, it's also programs. To some degree, we all know what to do. Science has been very clear, and never has there been a time where more information has been more readily available. Where the battles are won and lost, though, is what are you doing with the information and why does it matter? And that's another thing where it starts to get really exhausting, is there are scientific standards that are non-negotiable. There are certain foods that we can eat because everything's permissible, but not everything's beneficial, that will completely take us further away from weight loss. But what we'll try to do is we'll try to stuff a lifestyle that doesn't support weight loss into the want for a lifestyle that supports weight loss. And we try to convince ourselves that our lifestyle and the things we're doing and the part we're playing aren't the issue. And I see this happen time and time again when I work with a lot of clients. They'll say, oh, I think it's my thyroid. And I'll go, okay, well, like let's look at the things you can control. How much water are you getting in on a daily basis? None. Okay, how much exercise are you getting on a daily basis? None. Oh, okay. Have you tracked your food to see if you're making decisions that support weight loss? No. Okay, so yes, could it be your thyroid? Absolutely, because of science. But before we jump to the less than likely conclusion, let's start with the things that are very controllable, that are very much able to be influenced by us. But quite often we don't. And so we'll try something for a week and we won't see the 5 to 10 pounds lost that we've been marketed. And so we'll try something new. And then we'll try something new. And all the time that we spend trying something new, if we would have just done the small incremental things that would lead to weight loss, we'd have been done with it by now. We don't. We keep trying to jump from that shiny object to this shiny object to this shiny object as if science has been rewritten. Like, yes, we're making landmark discoveries all the time. And depending on what you think about healthcare, some call it the mafia. I'll let you decide your own thing. But if there was a very wealthy way for doctors to make money off of weight loss, do you think they'd still tell you, well, why don't you just exercise more and eat less? The problem is the psychology of it. And that's where diet fatigue comes in, is because we take these small little issues that if we said, yes, I love the Lord with God with all my heart, and yes, that needs addressed because in some way, shape, or form, food or the scale or the mirror has become an idol. And yes, I have the time. And yes, I have the desire. Then are you willing to do those small incremental steps? Because so many of us want to say yes. We're sold that there's a way to avoid the yes. But at some point, the wicked web catches up with us. And we find ourselves entangled in frustration and defeat. And what ends up happening? Well, we typically cope with the same thing that got us to the point that we needed to not cope. And the cycle perpetuates. So, how do we break it and actually have progress? Very, very, very simple. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. And if your no is no and now is not the time, then that's fine because you might not have the time. However, if you genuinely love the Lord your God and you're willing to look at your schedule through the lens of the gospel, that's between you and God, but most people have the time. And when you spend your time in a wise manner, you can plan your meals, which makes weight loss way more affordable than it's ever been. So you do have the money. All you need is the heart. But if you already answered yes, that it belongs to God, then what's the issue with number 5? There shouldn't be. Are you willing? But that's where we get to leave it because I don't get to make that decision for you. That's up to you. My hope is it's consistent with your other yeses. But again, number 5 is a direct result of number 1. I'm going to let you do that math and you let me know how the equation turns out and if I can help in any way. So I'm going to leave it there and we're going to pray for that.